This is a special edition of the Catholic News Roundup and Vortex, the clerical abuse scandal.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Vorse. This week we're going to be talking about the sex abuse crisis that has once again engulfed the church in the secular media. A few points need to be laid out clearly. First of all, no sexual abuse should ever be tolerated of minors or adults, but especially minors. Secondly, the overwhelming majority, more than 80% of known cases, have been homosexual abuse. 3, this does not mean that all homosexuals are child abusers. It does not even mean that even a majority of homosexuals are child abusers. That's not the point. It does mean, however, that in the ranks of the Catholic priesthood, there seems to be a much larger percentage of homosexual priests who are abusers than heterosexual priests who are abusers. Now, before we go on to some possible reasons for this, let's take a quick sidebar. Some professionals have suggested that just because the abuse was homosexual in nature does not mean that the abusers themselves were homosexual. Their disclaimer that the abusers were not homosexual in identity is based on what appears to be a shaky interpretation of data. They have made the claim that these men saw young boys as a target of opportunity because it was mostly young boys who were altar servers. They have compared their predatory actions to those of men in prison who rape other men. While no one, including the experts, can ever know the full extent of a given person's psychosexual development or motives, etc., we can know some things. These priests did not lie in wait in a dark corner waiting to spring upon their young victims. They planned and plotted and schemed and covered up and oftentimes had multiple victims, almost all of them boys. To suggest that, like men in prison, they did not have the opportunity to prey upon young women is ridiculous. If homosexuality had nothing to do with this, then why are the acts almost exclusively homosexual in nature? It seems too many people are simply willing to overlook this obvious point and willing to make up excuse after excuse and proffer one psychological theory after another to avoid this blatant truth. Perhaps other motivations were at work in the twisted thoughts of these men, but they played themselves out as homosexual. And all this was going on right at the same time as a homosexual subculture was asserting itself rather strongly in seminaries across the country. This fact has been reported multiple times and has been proven by the presence of numerous Catholic priests and bishops announcing their homosexuality. The bigger issue here is it logical, is it intellectually honest to simply dismiss any connection between homosexual statutory rape by priests on a large scale and the emergence of a homosexual subculture among numerous priests and prelates? This issue, professed homosexual priests in the clergy and the sex abuse crisis taken collectively, have been a time bomb waiting to go off, put in place by a turning away from the faith by many in leadership roles in the church. An attitude of clericalism has produced a climate of cover-up, and the clericalism has not been confined to only those in collars. Lay people who exercise authority in the church are also part of this. They introduced their errant theology and liturgical abuses with the support of clerics, many of whom were openly homosexual, like retired Milwaukee Archbishop Rembert Weekland, and others who are professedly homosexual sympathetic, like retired Detroit Auxiliary Bishop Thomas Gumbleton. These men and many, many others had a great influence in fostering a climate of subversion with regard to the church's teaching on sexual morality, including homosexuality. It is to such as these that lay Catholics need to look for the real cause of the crisis that the secular media is now using as a weapon against the Holy Father specifically and the church's teachings in general. Much damage has been done by the refusal to accept and teach the truths of the Catholic faith on the part of those charged and ordained to do so. It's time to start putting the blame for this exactly where it belongs. This is not a failing of church teaching. It is a failing to teach the church's teaching from the pulpits and in the seminaries. I'm Michael Vorse.
Please help us keep delivering these kinds of messages that so desperately need to be heard and acted on. Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber. Become immersed in the faith established by Jesus Christ. The Catholic Church is the only hope against evil because that is its God-given mission. As our Lord said, apart from me, you can do nothing. Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber and come to learn and love Christ more deeply.